All right, so we're going to be starting soon, about a minute's time at 10 o'clock, but this is going to be Sprinkler Talk, your questions answered part 2, so episode 47 in the series of Sprinkler Talk. So yeah, thank you if you've been tuning in for whenever we started. Was it sort of January, February, I think, somewhere like that. We, it was well before Christmas, wasn't it, that we started the Sprinkler Talks. So yeah, thanks for your support over the time. You can probably tell by the way I'm speaking that this is going to be one of the last Sprinkler Talks that we're going to be doing in this format, although we are going to be still doing content, but in a slightly different way going forward in the future. Going to be focusing on more sort of live demonstrations, live kind of videos, rather than kind of the theory side of things in terms of like PowerPoints and teaching. All right, so it is now 10 o'clock, so I will begin. So yeah, as I just said, this is Sprinkler Talk episode 47, and it's the second part of your questions answered. So I had a few questions left over from the first part of answering questions, and yeah, thank you to those that sent some fresh questions for me, which has meant that I've got to fill up this new presentation. So yeah, let's get on with it then. So first question here, this is kind of clarifying the situation of life safety and the LPS 1048 certificate of conformity. So as I've talked about in previous Sprinkler Talks, there are different certificates of conformity that you can have for your sprinkler system. It's like a certificate that says, yeah, this sprinkler system is good. It's been installed by a qualified, it's been designed and installed by a qualified person or company. It meets these requirements. It's been checked, and it is a good system in inverted commas. So there are different companies and organisations which will provide you with a certificate of conformity, and the LPCB under the LPS scheme is one of those options. And it is, a popular option. It is seen as a bit of a gold standard to do that. But the sprinkler rules, if you like, the what we call the FPA technical bulletins and 12845, is generally there for property protection. Life safety is really only makes up a small part of that. So the question is, if I've got a life safety building and the purpose of the sprinklers of a life safety, can I still get an LPS 1048 certificate of conformity to kind of go with that? And the answer is yes, you absolutely can. In the LPS 1048 scheme, which by the way, you can view online. You don't have to kind of be a member. You don't have to type in any details. You can just log on to Redbook Live. I can't remember if it's .com or .co.uk, but if you just search for Redbook Live on Google, then you can ask to see the LPS 1048 scheme. And in those documents there, it lays out some options. So here are the options. So I'm looking at version 5, the latest version of the 1048 scheme document. And it says here, Appendix 1, list of acceptable installation standards and publications referred to. So you can choose one of these options, and all of these can lead to a successful COC. So the first one is probably the most familiar one. The LPC rules for automatic fire sprinkler systems incorporating 12845 using the latest TBs available at the time. Okay, so that's the kind of the most obvious one, the most kind of go-to version. Option B, though, this is the one that we're interested in for this question. For sprinklers intended to comply with ADB, so approved document B, and life safety, or Annex F as it's called here, these can be designed to BS 12845 and TB210 and TB233. So that there's just two technical bulletins which are mentioned there. I think I may have got that wrong, which particular TBs. They'll come up on the next screen. So I did sort of chat to some people to kind of clarify that situation in terms of, is it a case that you must only use those two technical bulletins, or is it a case that you must use those two and any other TBs are optional? And that, I believe that is the case, is that you have to use those two TBs, but then all other TBs are optional, so you can use them if you wish. C, BS9251. So obviously that's only going to be appropriate for under the applications listed under 9251. But still, you can have an LPS 1048 COC on your residential building under 9251. NFPA 13 is also there. So again, you can have a certificate of conformity to NFPA 13. Not 13D, which is a domestic, and not 13R, which is a residential. And also FM. FM, as I mentioned quite recently, I think it was last week, I was talking at different approval bodies and different schemes. So their loss prevention data sheets, you can install your sprinkler system to FM regulations, and again, you can then get yourself a 1048 COC. So the answer is yes to that one. Yes, I thought I got that wrong. So apologies for that. So B, it should read TB201 and TB233, so not 210 but 201. So the ones you have to use, first of all, TB201, which is suitable sprinkler components and services. So that's listing various standards. So for example, sprinkler heads 12259 part 1. And then also there's a comment to use LPCB approved equipment where possible. So that's in there as well in TB201. TB233, water supplies for sprinkler systems intended to comply with ADB. So that makes sense, doesn't it? You have to use 233 because that is laying out your water supply options for life safety buildings. Other TBs are optional, and this is why I got confused, because I did want to talk about TB210 as well, because TB210 for me is a good one to also use, because that's talking about your automatic pump installation, the electrical requirements in particular that you've got to conform to. That one would normally also be included. Okay, next question. If providing a sprinkler main off the Water Authority supply, what flow rate should we be asking for? Coverage for a basement car park. So the flow rates, can normally be calculated using two different ways. So either FHC, so full hydraulically calculated, or by the table method, pre-calculated methods. So if you're using FHC, then the water supply is all calculated by the computer. You need to put all that information in, and you will get your answer. If you're using pre-calculated systems, then you'd refer to Table 6. And actually, Table 6 is a good kind of estimate. I mean, the good thing about the pre-calculated systems, it's very quick to get an answer. So you can look at the Table 6, and that will give you a sort of reasonable, a kind of normal kind of figure to go with. So let's have a look in. There's also more detail in Sprinkler Talk 35 about this kind of idea of water flow, particularly in the light of towns' mains and pressure checks. I talk all about that in Sprinkler Talk 35. So Table 6, is what the table looks like. So a car park is OH2. It's in the basement, so I'm guessing it would be OH2 wet. So you'll be looking at that column there, OH2 wet. If it's OH2 dry, then you drop down the next column and the flow requirements go up slightly. So it's telling you the sort of nominal flow and the maximum demand flow in litres per minute. And then it gives you some pressures to work with. The PS is to do with the static pressure. So for every metre, it's 0.098. So it's roughly 1 bar for 10 metres of height that you're going up. So yeah, you would need to increase the pressures. As I say, that there's more information in Sprinkler Talk 35 on all that kind of thing. Next question. Can I use concealed sprinkler heads under BS 12845/LPC rules? So we're talking about concealed sprinkler heads with the cover plate on them, and we're talking about, can they be installed for industrial or commercial applications? Yeah, that's really for me what the question's getting at. We know that they can be installed for residential and domestic under 9251, etc., and they're very popular in that kind of use. So the answer is, well, basically no, but I didn't want to say complete no, because sprinkler heads are always being kind of designed, manufactured. New ones are coming along the market. So it might be that there is one out there that is suitable, that I kind of missed it. And it might be that one is designed in the future which does meet the regulations. But generally speaking, no, you can't use a concealed head under these rules. So first of all, remember, if it's property protection, it really is, normally a link between the insurer and the building owner. So if the insurer says, yep, I'm happy for you to use this particular head, then essentially you can do whatever you like as long as the insurer is happy, as long as the insurer is going to issue you a certificate of completion and conformity, then you can use whatever you like. So there's always that kind of dialogue, I guess, between the insurer and the building owner. You can discuss what you want, and some compromises can be made. For life safety, though, we've got to have an approved head. So, again, remember that TB201. So it should be an LPCB approved head. And as part of that approval, it needs to cover the application that you're using. And under 12845, that head must be a quick response head. That is one of the criteria of Annex F for life safety. We have to use quick response heads. So I don't believe that there are concealed heads which are LPCB approved and are rated as quick response. Like I say, I could be wrong. There are some designs which are nearly concealed. They are kind of these fusible link design heads, which again I have shown before. Sprinkler Talk number 5. I'm talking about sprinkler heads, so I do show some different designs. So there are designs which are flusher than traditional sprinkler heads with the large glass bulb, but I don't think there are any concealed heads which are approved under quick response. And remember, again, Sprinkler Talk 5, I went through this in some detail, and we looked at the difference between fast response and quick response, because the two words that kind of mean the same thing, but there is a definite distinction when we're talking about sprinkler heads. So in order for the response time, the RTI of the head to be a fast-acting head, then it needs to have an RTI less than 50. What that basically means is that the bulb, in this case, is a 3mm bulb rather than a 5mm bulb. So, yeah, it's going to activate quickly. But quick response is applied to the head as a whole, the whole design. And concealed heads, so generally not approved under quick response because there's other elements at play. So the cover plate needs to fall away, the deflector needs to drop down, and all of that takes time. All of that can go wrong, and therefore the heads, I say, are generally not approved under quick response. But as I say, the answer is to the actual question, yes, you can, as long as you can find one which is approved and is quick response. Next question. Can I use, is sort of on a similar line really, I guess, can I use CPVC pipework under BS 12845/LPCB rules? So again, it's a similar kind of theme. Things that we are quite common to use under residential and domestic under 9251. CPVC is the most popular type of pipework to use under those rules. Well, can actually we use them under 12845? I suppose before I answer the question, I'll ask another question, which is why would you want to? I think, with the previous question, concealed heads, they've obviously got an aesthetic appeal to them. In this case, CPVC pipework is just easier to work with. It's lightweight, it's easy to cut and shape on site. So there are some advantages to using CPVC, but can we use it under 12845? And the answer is yes, actually, you can. So TB227 does talk about other pipe materials. So it isn't just talking about CPVC pipe work. It's just leaving the door open, I guess, to, you can use lots of other different types of pipe, as long as they meet this kind of certain criteria. So they need to be tested, they need to be approved, they need to have an instruction manual, which has been looked at by the FPA and sort of given the kind of green light by them. So there are some caveats. For example, it's limited to OH1 and only for selected applications, and these are listed in a table in TB227. So let's have a closer look at that. So first of all, the plastic pipe work, it says it must be suitable for sprinkler service. Thought that'd be pretty obvious. Satisfy LPS 1260. So again, that's a kind of testing standard for pipe. Be on LPCB approved list of fire and security products. So again, it's got to be an approved thing. Have an FPA endorsed user guide. So again, are they happy with the user guide which is supplied? Does it kind of give enough detail in terms of how to actually install it correctly? Plastic pipework installation is limited to wet installations only. You've got to use FHC to do the calculations. They're only suitable for use with quick response heads. The pipework has got to be within sealing voids. So the pipework mustn't be exposed pipework, because then the CPVC pipework is more susceptible to damage than the steel variant. So that's why we want the pipework to be in the sealing voids rather than exposed. And various occupancies and uses recommended by the supplier. So what that's kind of saying is that even if TB227 says you can use plastic pipe in this particular application, if the manufacturer says you shouldn't, then don't. Yeah, makes sense to me. Plastic pipework must not be used in floor or ceiling spaces which are used for ventilation plenums. I guess that's to do with kind of the ambient heat going on in there, and must not be installed in corrosive atmospheres. Yeah, makes sense. So what are the applications then? So these are listed in Table 3 of TB227. So schools, colleges, educational institutions, offices, hotels, museums, libraries, courtrooms, nursing houses, data processing rooms, prisons, churches, restaurant dining areas, and attics. So essentially, it is a list of light hazard and OH1 hazards with some additional clarity. So you can see here that this is not including storerooms. And for the restaurant, it's not including the kitchens and the kind of bin stores and other kind of more higher hazard areas. So yeah, there are, I'd say again, even with the list, there are a few sort of caveats just to make sure what we're talking about. For me, I think schools, colleges, and educational institutions shouldn't be on the list. In my opinion, I think that's too broad a topic. Again, I think as we've discussed before, other educational institutions, well, I mean, there's a very wide scope there, and there could be all sorts of different hazards included within that. But yeah, it's got to be OH1 anyway, Max. So I guess that covers it. If you've got areas of a school which are OH3, then you wouldn't be covering it anyway. Another question. Are fire brigade inlets compulsory with the latest technical bulletins? So yeah, I have to admit, I got caught out with this one because I was, I think in part one, I was talking about fire brigade inlets, and I was saying that essentially, that they are useful, they have their place, but are not compulsory. Well, actually, yes, they are compulsory with the latest technical bulletins. Excuse me. So TB232 was updated in May 2020 to include specifically fire and rescue service inlets. So let's have a look at that. So TB232.3.5, appropriately sized and housed fire and rescue service breaching inlets conforming to BS 5041-3 shall be connected to the distribution main between the water supplies and the insulation control valves. So light hazard and ordinary hazard requires a two-way, 100 millimetre, should say millimetre by the way, not 100 metre inlet, that's quite large. Yeah, 100 millimetre inlet, and high hazard requires a four-way, 150 millimetre inlet. The connection shall be in a location which is easily accessible for the fire and rescue service and their vehicles, i.e. definitely on an outside wall, and some thought given for where the fire rescue appliances are going to be parked so that they can get easy access to it. So first of all, if it's not clear, what's the point? The point is that these breaching inlets can supplement the sprinkler installation. That's either to kind of give it an extra boost, or because there's some kind of failure with the water supply, and so the fire and rescue service again can sort of solve that problem by pushing water into the system via their own pumps and hoses. The diagram is obviously my diagram, but I have copied it from TB232, which has a very similar looking diagram. And I think it's important to say that this is an example about how it could be done. But it does say connected to the distribution main between the water supplies and the insulation control valves. There are other ways in which it could have been connected. It could have been connected directly to the tank, for example. It could have been connected above the insulation control valve, I guess, although maybe that's not such a good idea. That's what it says anyway. That needs to be there. However, we did just talk about life safety, didn't we, and about the 1048 certificate of conformity. Well, obviously TB232 does not need to be followed for life safety, I would imagine. So that looks like a kind of get out clause there. I think this is the final question now. Can I reduce the number of sprinkler heads needed by lowering the height below the ceiling? So just to kind of explain what this is talking about. So we are talking about the distance between the underside of the ceiling or roof and the sprinkler heads. And what this question is getting at in particular is reducing the total number of sprinkler heads. So if there are obstructions in the ceiling, again, which we've talked about in previous episodes, then you would need to put additional sprinkler heads. So, for example, beams and bays, you would need more heads per square metre to kind of allow for these different obstructions and different changes in ceiling height. However, if you brought all the heads down below the ceiling, then you could apply a more general spacing requirements, and therefore the total number of sprinkler heads would be reduced. So the answer is, well, yeah, technically, yes, you can do that, but should you do that? No, you shouldn't. So sprinkler heads should not be lower than 0.15 metres, ideally below the ceiling without a good reason. So the way in which sprinkler heads are designed to operate, of course, is down to heat. So the closer the heads are to the ceiling, although not totally to the ceiling, so there's kind of a sweet spot between 75 millimetres, 150 millimetres. That's kind of to say that the sweet spot for installation. That way we can capture the heat that gets sitting on the ceiling, and then the bulbs will heat up and the sprinkler heads will operate. If the sprinklers are lower than that, then we're going to have to wait longer for the heat to build up on the ceiling and that heat layer to expand, sort of expanding down the layers, and then it can heat up and activate the bulbs. So that this kind of practice of reducing lowering the height of the sprinkler heads just to save costs, essentially to reduce the number of heads, is not good, because it's not to the benefit of the sprinkler system. They say it's just to the benefit of the total cost of the installation, and in fact, of course, it is to the detriment of the sprinkler system, because these rules are here for a reason, to make sure that there's enough coverage and the heads operate correctly and in a timely manner. So also see Sprinkler Talk 41 and 26, which are talking about this kind of idea in different guises. So a little bit of clarification then on sprinkler placement below ceilings. So this is taken from BS 12845, clause 12.4.2. So as I've just said, where possible, between 0.075 metres and 0.15 metres below the ceiling or roof. There is then an extra statement that says, if you can't do that, then definitely no lower than 0.45 metres below concrete ceilings, below the underside of roof or ceilings. So again, we're kind of allowing them to go a little bit further down, and then we kind of have another statement which says, where circumstances make it unavoidable to break these rules, I'll paraphrase that, the area involved shall be as small as possible. So you can see that the rules are quite friendly, because they are kind of putting the responsibility on the sprinkler designer and installer to say, we'll get them as close to the ceiling as we can, but where you need to, you are allowed to do it. So that the point is that these rules should not be abused just to save money. There should be a good reason for having the sprinkler heads lower than these limits that are being set out. I've seen a kind of statement from the FPA which says they're going to make a change to TB 229 to kind of sort this out, basically, and rewrite it to make this clearer, to stop this from happening in sprinkler installations. TB 229 is like a collection of areas in 12845 which they want to overwrite, essentially. So it's a TB that says, right, that bit there, change that to this, that bit there, change it to this, that bit there, change to this. So at the moment, TB 229 does not mention placement of sprinkler heads below ceilings, but then soon, in the next update, there'll be a clause there that says 12.4.2 is replaced with this new statement here, which is say we'll kind of sort that out. All right, and with that episode, so I've been talking sort of 28 minutes so far of this sprinkler talk. I would like to announce that I want to celebrate 24 hours of content. So 24 hours of sprinkler talk. So this is episode 47. If I had 48 episodes, half an hour each, 24 hours. I reckon that the average time of sprinkler talk is a little bit over 30 minutes per episode, and therefore I'm saying, yeah, it's got 24 hours of content, which I think is a really good achievement. I didn't think I'd be able to talk about sprinklers for 24 hours, but there you go. I think I've just done it. So yeah, thank you for being along in the ride, whether for a short time or a long time. I do appreciate it. So yeah, next week, well, there will not be a sprinkler talk next week. I'll be having a little break, but we will be back soon. So yeah, Project Fire, education, best practice. It is something that we're very keen to do, very keen to continue to do. So we are planning, doing sprinkler talk, but in a slightly different way. It might be more of an interview format. We're going to do some videos, sort of looking around our factory, showing you how to do some testing, kind of showing more kind of practical things. So yeah, do look out for content. Obviously, we'll be announcing it on social media. We'll be sending out emails to our kind of mailing list for Sprinkler Talk and letting you know when this new content is coming up. But yeah. Thanks again for tuning in. As always, if you've got any questions or comments, just pop them into the chat and I'll have a look at them in a minute. Otherwise, I hope you have a great week. And like I say, I will see you soon. Bye-bye.